raised in Los Angeles, I was hardwired with a lust for shiny things and being somebody. When I was 19 years old, I had worked a year at San Diego State student newspaper as a photographer and wanted to capitalize on my small photo skill set and insert myself into the scene, which I was positive existed and that I wanted to be a part of. It was the one where people wore sunglasses at all times, never smiled, were rude at Starbucks, walked quickly, and made me believe they were better than me in ways I wasn't self-aware enough to understand but human enough to feel. From my understanding, you could be granted entry into the scene through a few different routes, from acting and casting models to being a drug dealer or a rich person's child. But I was going the noble route. I was going to be a photographer. I started sending out emails to any reputable seeming LA photographer or studio and got precisely 2 emails back. Email number 1 was from Ken Weingart, who, to this day, is hit number 2 on a Los Angeles celebrity photographer Google search. His site is filled with images like 1990s Kate Winslet and pre-surgery Kim Kardashian. A proper Los Angeles has-been. Ken's studio is his Hollywood apartment. I was alone with Ken in his apartment, and it smelled like newspaper and lost dreams. Upon arrival, he told me I had a nice frame and mentioned a nude series he was working on. The room wasn't dim, but the air was so stagnant and dusty it felt hard to see. Periodically, a judgmental cat would appear and give me a slow up-down before vanishing back into the haze. Official intern duty number 1 was to sit on Ken's low, sloppily made bed and delete all of the old recordings on his cable box. Task 2 was to fidget with the film of those 1990s photographs he was so proud of on his website. I started texting my dad under the table to confirm that the situation was as weird as I thought. I sort of felt like I was in the den of a sexual predator, but I needed reassurance. His only response was, in all caps, "Get out of there." It was around that time I yelled something about my mom getting into a car accident as I made a mad dash for the door. "Yeah, that happens a lot," he mumbled, as his long face stood in the door jamb and watched me run down his building's carpeted hallway towards my injured mother / away from my potential killer. The second email I got back was from Slick Force Studios. Consider that name for a second, because I didn't when I was 19. Slick Force. The only other intern was a girl from Brooks Institute with a warm smile and huggable frame that made me feel safe. She had been working with the studio for a few months and seemed excited to have another intern aboard. She spent the morning teaching me about backdrops, setting up lights, getting things plugged into the right spots, and introduced me to makeup artists and stylists. I finally felt like I was in a place where I could meet the right people and maybe learn some stuff. The first client was getting ready to walk out of the green room, which was literally a lime green lean-to of a room propped up in the middle of the otherwise open space. The studio echoed with hurried footsteps, hoots and hollers as out walked uber-curvaceous model Coco T. In inches of fabric and heels, twirling and bouncing in her stringy ensemble for a camera-wielding posse of young men, including her husband, Ice-T. "Every girl's got a little hoe in her. She just gotta flip the switch," bellowed her proud husband. "Yo, say something real quick to the camera before you start," one of the others said into his LCD monitor. Without missing a beat, she whipped her hair around to face him. "Hey everyone, it's your girl Coco, getting all the shots for you. I hope you like them. Stay tuned." She blew a bunch of kisses to the camera before they panned up and down her bare body as she spun around in a sultry circle. Feminism wasn't part of my conversation back then. But even still, the moment stunned me. I didn't expect to see a mostly naked woman just then, and it made me extremely uncomfortable in really abstract ways. It wasn't so much about the objectification of women or wondering if she'd only make 79 cents to every male lingerie model's dollar. I wasn't there yet at 19. But it was a mixture of being intimidated by her confidence and really confused about how to act. I had never physically been near a woman dressed in extremely provocative lingerie before. Sure, you see them all the time on TV and in magazines, but I had never actually been in the same room as bare butt cheeks and smushed together boobs. I felt like I shouldn't be looking at her, but it was literally everyone's job to be looking at her. And in a strange, minute, but very present way, it made me feel masculine, like a true woman would be comfortable next to a naked woman, because why wouldn't she? As all the forward girls in the locker room would always say, we've all got the same stuff. And it made me feel masculine in the obvious sense that I looked nothing like her, this celebrated form of womanhood. My awkwardness made me feel akin to a pubescent boy, like I was too shy to speak to the pretty teacher's assistant or something. It wasn't that I was attracted to her, but I was scared of her beauty and what it meant for me in the same sort of a way. It was a weird moment. Little known fact, when photographing a lingerie-clad model, like we were this day, there is a light named the V light that is shined directly at a woman's vagina. Keeping that light in the right place is somebody's job. So, the other intern motioned me over to her by the backdrop and Coco. Ever wonder how we get that beaded water look? She smiled. We rub them with baby oil and then we spray them with water. We're gonna do it because we're the only girls in the studio. Just be careful not to get anything on her clothes. It's a pain to Photoshop out from what I hear. I'm on my knees, with Coco's roughly shaven thighs slipping through my hands slick with baby oil. I hesitated for a second, and Coco smelled fear. We made eye contact, and she glared at me over her enormous bosom. Her skin felt thick and rough, like maybe she hadn't shaved that morning, or her razor was dull. And the fact that her thighs were so firm and full and shaped completely different than mine made me feel like I was touching something that wasn't human. This wasn't the computer-altered, poreless perfect I was used to. This was stray hairs mixed in the baby oil on her back, the stubble in her armpits, the veins visible beneath her skin, the straining of the seams on her ensemble, and the judgment in her eyes that were bordered by thick makeup burying itself into wrinkled lines. Once she appeared the right amount of sweaty, we took our bottles of oil and the shoot began. The photographer scowled into his camera and into the computer screen next to him as Coco arched and contorted her bulbous physique on the backdrop. Coco, could you move your hips an inch to the left and lower your left arm just the slightest bit, he'd ask, before Ice-T would let out a booming, "Yes, that's it! That is it, my man!" I couldn't understand what they were looking for, how any one pose or slight movement of her left arm could make her any more or less appealing. Couldn't she be picking her nose or doing the Charleston or something? Did it even matter? After the shoot, all that was left on the seamless backdrop was an oily brown spot. When we pulled more backdrop paper down from the roll suspended from the ceiling and cut off the part wrinkled and dirtied by Coco's shoot, it reminded me of how my gynecologist replaces a sheet of wax paper on her examination table. There was another lingerie model that came in afterwards for a shoot. More baby oil, more spray bottles. She was a little more friendly, though, and she chatted with me while I rubbed her stomach and chest. Interning, that's great. She smiled at me sincerely. Where are you going to school? San Diego State, I responded. I'm studying journalism and art. Oh my gosh, no way, I'm studying journalism at CSUN. We compared journalism courses while I sprayed her with water. She was taking media law and news reporting. I was in web writing and television news. Just as my differences with Coco were off-putting, my similarities with this woman had just the same effect. Up until this point, I had subconsciously assumed that all lingerie models, Coco included, weren't very smart and had childhood issues that made them attention-seeking or something. A stereotype no more grounded than the expectation that all women should look like these models, really. But after a brief conversation about privacy laws and editing techniques with lingerie model number 2, I was no longer afforded that convenient opportunity of placing all women who posed in lingerie in the same category with the same title, safe and sound, far, far away from whatever category I placed myself in. I couldn't live in that comfortable illusion that I was nothing like lingerie models. I was there, wasn't I? Hands covered in oil, making their cleavage glisten for the readers of Maxim. It was dark after the set was torn down and everything put away. One of the studio managers walked the other intern and I to our cars in the lot across the street. "We'll give you a call," he smiled. "We have more shoots coming up next week we could use you on." But they never called. They smelled fear just like Coco did. We all knew I wasn't going to last another day. And I didn't. I never pursued photography after that day. I gave it the old college try and came up with a pervert and perversion. I turned to my camera at the paper the next fall and joined the writing team instead. That night, as I drove home, my incredibly hydrated, soft hands gripped the steering wheel of my 1988 Volvo station wagon as I tried to figure out how I could ever get anyone to believe what had just happened. If you met me nowadays, you'd know I'm the type of person who takes pleasure in quirky feminist hijinks, like finding those stickers of the squatting angel and devil ladies and putting stickers of poop swirls beneath their vinyl butts. I call it the she poops from there movement or the bowel movement. But I have also gotten on my knees and rubbed baby oil on mostly naked women so they could be portrayed as such in magazines. Just like those lingerie models, I belong to no convenient category and have no convenient title. Maybe Ice-T's Enlightened Proverb wasn't too far off. Just gotta flip the switch.
Another VAMP first-timer, Patricia Dwyer.